we think our sponsors are the best in the world, like Foothill Transit. Visit them online at foothilltransit.org, and we will promote you on the show like we are for them. Absolutely. If you want to get a hold of us, though, you should go on to crowncitynews.com. And let's see, we also have the Morning Buzz.
We have so much buzz, almost too much buzz.
It's the Comey Buzz, the hearing, and how that's going. And we're going to bring a guest in to talk about the
somebody
Russian
called it like,
I
heard the term National Comey Day at one point yesterday.
It was Comey parties.
Yeah, there's so much Comey, so much, 6'8" worth.
The one thing, like Trump is on the hot seat still, and the right feels like he was vindicated. So what do you think, Eric?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on the show. It's a pleasure. I think the Comey hearing was very telling and really fascinating. I'm pleased to see that Mr. Comey himself has admitted, and I got to give him credit for being so clear, he's the leaker. Wow.
I know I said he needed some Depends earlier. I mean, I think that's
extraordinary. I mean, you know, FBI agents get fired for that type of thing or go to jail. And here he's the leaker. Well, that's extraordinary. The other thing that I think is extraordinary is that he clearly says that Mr. Trump was not under investigation. He validated that position. I also found it interesting to read some other commentary recently, particularly by Alan Dershowitz, who came out yesterday indicating it, and you know, he's a great constitutional law scholar, that Mr. Trump was well within his rights to fire him, and really well within his rights to either tell him to stop investigating or to start investigating. The FBI works, the director works at the pleasure of the president. Is it unsavory? Is it unpleasant? That's another issue. But is it illegal? So where I'm focused is, did Trump break the law? And is there a conspiracy? And did he allow the Russians in somehow? If that's the case, that's a whole other conversation. And you know, we will be having a very different conversation, and nobody should get away with that. But it doesn't seem that there's a lot of fire where the smoke is. I think the Comey testimony helped clear a lot of the unknowns up.
I'm not sure. I mean, I think it's still out there. I really do think that the left thinks one thing, and the right thinks something completely different. And I think time will tell a little bit too, but there's more exposure. But I also find it very fascinating that Comey felt like he was put in a position where his whole relationship with Loretta Lynch was more important than really he stepped over his authority.
Well, it certainly illustrates the politicization of the FBI director's position. And really, he is supposed to be operating independent of the political process to the extent that he can. But it seems that Mr. Comey was very aware of the political issues and was managing that for better or for worse, as it related to pressures that he may have had from Lynch or Trump or the Clinton campaign or internal pressures, et cetera.
Well, did he ever, and this is kind of okay, so I promised myself I would listen, and I did. I listened all the way up to the canyon I was going to yesterday until the radio signal cut out. And first of all, I was riveted. I could not, it was, CNN at one point had this countdown to the Comey, testimony, and I felt like I was watching the NBA Finals for testimony, and I was like, whoa, what, this is so much. But one thing that I found very interesting, Comey, the FBI, I guess I had no idea how, I almost felt myself rooting for them, in a sense that the independence, you're talking about the political sway a little bit, and I personally found that it seemed like he was managing to push both of that aside, even with the Loretta Lynch thing, where he didn't refer to it, I don't believe he did, refer to it as a manner instead of an investigation. And with this Trump thing, it seems like he's been able to, he had a quote yesterday, the seal of justice, the emblem, the lady on the front has a blindfold on for a reason. You don't pull it down and pay homage to your patron. It seemed to me like he's been avoiding that, which is why I think this is such a big issue, because he's been able to decipher it before, but now he feels like for some reason there's a cloud that's asking him to do that specific thing.
Yeah. Well, Trump. I mean, Comey has definitely been in a very tough position. There's no question about it. And he's tried to thread the needle, and he's still trying to thread the needle to protect the FBI, to protect his own reputation, and to protect the Republic. But when you take away all of that, the issue is, did the Russians influence our election with the assistance of the Trump campaign? We know that the Russians have tried to influence the election.
Right.
They probably always do. The Chinese and many other countries try to do the same.
Also, and this is your expertise, it's also my understanding that it was easier to get into the DNC than it was to get into the RNC.
Yes. Yes, well, one has to take into consideration what measures did these organizations put in place to protect their IT infrastructure, their data.
Right.
How easy was it to hack into those systems and to extract out emails? Or was there an insider within the DNC who was assisting and providing that data? Look, we just had Mr. Comey admit that he was a leak.
Right.
It's not a far stretch to think that there's somebody on the inside of the DNC who may have been a leak.
No, it really isn't. So let's go back to just the positions and who reports to who and why some of those things weren't happening. And then I'm even jumping ahead too, because it looks like Trump, to a certain extent, really has been vindicated as far as his involvement with the Russians and the election. But are there going to be others who are going to be interrogated or investigated?
Well, we have 5 ongoing investigations right now. The House Judiciary Committee, the Senate Judiciary Committee, the House Oversight Committee. We have the FBI investigation led by former Director Mueller, who I think the world of. We also have the Senate and House intel committees that are investigating. Now, through this process, they're going to be interviewing everybody involved in the Trump campaign. They are going to learn new things. It wouldn't surprise me if there are going to be some other folks like Flynn who didn't tell the truth and whose heads may roll.
And what a freak out that had to have been. I mean, seriously, for that.
Big surprise. And particularly General Flynn, a man of his stature and reputation.
Exactly.
It's a sad fall from grace that this happened. But the question there is intent. Was there, and what was the purpose and the reason behind the communications with the Russians? Presumably it was to coordinate communications and not to give the Russians access to our election and to be able to influence the election. That will come out and we will learn. I'm hopeful that Mr. Trump's hands are clean in all of this, because I'd like to see the White House have an opportunity to act on their agenda. I think that this mudding of the waters and mucking up of the gears of Washington is certainly a problem for all of us as Americans, regardless if you're on the right or the left, because we need to. And look, the leaks have been terribly damaging to national security, and we need to see people held accountable. We just had an arrest, thankfully, of a 24-year-old contractor who was leaking information and who potentially held radical ideas and was working for our critical infrastructure. Crazy.
I mean, I'm so curious from a data side, like what would we do? How can we assure ourselves from a government? How do we protect it from a data side, from a cyber?
Well, my corporate clients.
What do you just hold up a golem out front, in front of the firewall and say, no, I'm a Sentry Post, you're not getting into our data? Like, how does that really briefly touch on it?
My corporate clients face this issue all day long, because there are hackers and bad guys in the commercial sector, internal and external, who are trying to steal what we call trade secrets.
Right.
The theft of intellectual property, a big problem for America, and we're fighting that every day in the trenches. The government has the same problem, and the way you do it is by exercising processes and controls and systems and using encryption and new technology to monitor and manage your electronic data so that you actually have control over it. I have a feeling that we have agencies in the U.S. government that are like Swiss cheese, and people can just walk out with a thumb drive full of data.
I'm
Horrible.
sure. How would somebody get a hold of you, Eric?
Oh, I'm at Duff & Phelps. We're a global consulting firm with 70 offices around the world. I'm in Century City, and I serve clients throughout the United States and overseas.
Thanks for being on.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Eric. Now, coming up, California's 43rd District Congresswoman Maxine Waters has a challenger in 2018, Mr. Omar Navarro.
Now he'll be on. Tammy Devine, the host of CCN's Tammy's Take, we'll have him on and they will talk about this millennial candidate. We'll see a little bit more about his